So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining our latest webinar, which is joint with Forekla. And today we have Mark Taylor, Applications Training Manager from Forekla, and David Stokes, Marketing Manager from Forekla, and our very own Pete Eden, who is Process and Technical Manager for the MBRA. So welcome, guys, and thank you for joining us today. So as you can guess, today's webinar is all about polishing, but a specific product that will save you money and time. So without further ado, I will move on to the next slide and hand over to Pete. When the slide goes zero, there you go. Oops, that one. There you go, Pete.
Smashing. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. I've headlined that there, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, back to the good old days. And I'm not on about the chap from the old good old days. The good old days when people like me used to come around your body shop and talk to you. So, but brace yourselves, we'll be back out there again soon as the lockover's finished. One thing that, as an area manager, that I used to get quite a lot was I'd perhaps be sitting in reception and there'd be somebody there booking the car in, saying that they'd had the car painted and they'd had to come back because they've got a few matte patches come up on the car after it had been repaired. Sometimes I'd go in the workshop and I'd see that there would be a car in there that was in for a rework, and I'd ask the question, you know, how often does that happen? Just making conversation, really. And I'd only always get, well, maybe twice a week we get something come back in again. So then I'd ask questions, you know, do you ever check the temperature of your oven? Do you ever check the pressures that the painters are painting at? Or do you just carry on and get the same results you've always got because you never change anything? And then often as not, that's what I used to get. How long do you leave a freshly painted job before you polish it? Was another question I was quite handy at asking. And it was amazing that I had from 15 minutes to 3 days. Sometimes it was just so bizarre that one end of the scale to the other. I notice you've got a mop there. Is that the mop of choice? And sometimes that mop would be a 9-inch grinder from the 70s with a lamb's wool head on it that was probably a bit more abrasive than a 40 grit disc. And then I come on to the question and say, well, how much do you actually spend on P3000? Because I can see boxes of it kicking around all over the place. And that really just built a picture for me that in that one area of the body shop, how much do we actually waste? How much time do we lose? How many comebacks do we get that we can't measure? How many customers we lose? So I thought, well, I'm going to ask the experts this. And in my travels up and down, I'd met up with Mark and I thought, well, there's nobody really that I knew any better that could talk to us about polishing and application of paint. So I'm now going to hand over to Mark and hopefully you'll enjoy what he's got to tell you and find it very informing along the way. Mark, over to you.
Okay, hi. So what I've found in my long, not so illustrious career in the motor trade is that an awful lot of polishing problems actually stem from the way we've painted the panels in the first place, or the way we've dried them, or the way we've denibbed the product. So if I start with painting, first of all, it's very important not to do things like that. Over application picture is a bit of an extreme example, but I'm talking about the much more subtle over application, whereby we're using the wrong gun setup, or we're not used to the paint and we're putting 2 full coats on and it's only supposed to be a coat and a half, which an awful lot of HS and UHS clear coats now are literally 1.5 coats. Plus there's always that old habit where you do a bonnet, it's a little bit dirty, you think, I'll just give it another coat and that will cover all that up, make it easier for me to polish. But it doesn't tend to make it easier for you to polish, because the problem is you get too much film build, the paint doesn't dry, you've got a dry surface, but then you've still got solvent trapped in the actual film build, and it never really dries properly, not for some significant time if you've overloaded. And what that can cause is a lot of drop back, scratch marks coming back, hazy patches coming back. So it's really, really important to follow the paint manufacturer's guidelines on application of paint. If you get everything right with the paint, polishing is not too bad most of the time. It's really quite straightforward and it's not grievous. But the minute you start to struggle, it's usually because something's gone wrong previously. So the second little picture on there says drying times. A lot of people, they don't check the panel temperatures in their ovens very often. And it's really handy to have a little infrared thermometer. You can pop in the oven after it's been going for about 10 minutes. It'll say 80 degrees on the wall, but it doesn't mean that the panel temperatures are anywhere near that, and they won't be. You're looking for 60 degrees on all panels. And when a paint manufacturer says 60 degrees for 15 minutes, it means panel temperature, not 80 degrees for 25 or 30 or 15 or whatever. And that's an important thing to check. So a little inexpensive infrared thermometer, just use it once in a while, pop in, check the temperatures. So if we move on to the next slide, I think I've probably got ahead of myself a little bit anyway. Cool. Yep, so there's your little infrared thermometer. And the problem is, if you've got filters that look like those on the right there and are a bit clogged up, what happens is the air throughput in your oven, the airflow, goes down and down and down, and that actually slows the heating process up. You'll probably all know, you've probably all seen it on the back of a tinned pie to go in your oven at home. It gives you two different sets of times and temperatures. One's for a conventional oven without a fan, and one's for a fan oven. And the fan oven is always shorter and a lower temperature. That's because that movement of air helps to heat up the pie, or in our case, the panels. So that's a common problem, because if the paint isn't really dry, when you come to polish it, it's a pain in the arse.
But Mark, it is crucial to have the filters changed on a regular basis.
Of course,
to get
for many reasons.
the air through the booth.
Yeah.
It takes away the excess spray. And I've seen booths previously where people have cut holes in the filters because they haven't changed them. And then all that overspray goes down onto the hardware, clogs the fan up and all the other bits.
Yeah.
So just general maintenance by changing the filters saves you time in the long run, I would have thought.
Yeah, but you can certainly get ahead with that if you've got a little infrared thermometer and you go in after 10 minutes, check your panels. You don't have to touch the panels, you just point it at the panel that you've painted. And really, your roof surfaces and your bonnets and your boot lids should make 60 within 5 to 10 minutes. The rest of the panels do take longer, the lower panels, but you do need that 60 degree for most paints. There are some paints that cure at slightly slower temperatures, but it's worth checking, and it will give you an idea of how clogged up your filters are anyway, even if they don't look like those, for instance.
Yeah.
So then we come to denibbing. Now, again, that just shows a man with a piece of P1500 wet and dry paper. That isn't the only way to denib, of course. There's so many different ways, but one of the most important things is do the minimum damage you can when you're denibbing. So if you're using the little rosettes, if you're using a DA, a mini DA, whatever the system is, most of them use a little bit of water. So try and always have clean water on hand for polishing, which is why I like the little squeezy bottles, because that's always going to be clean water. It's not coming out of a bucket that's covered in a scum of bits and pieces from around the workshop. And the other thing is, try not to use your fingertips as well. There's a block in the picture there, but you don't have to use a full-size block. You can use a mini block, a cut-down little block, denibbing tools like these little things. Any number of those things will help you, and don't put too much pressure on. Gently sand with a little bit of water, clean water, and you'll find that that is so much easier to polish away. Word of caution, if you're using a full-size DA, which some people do, if you're using the edge of a full-size DA, you will put a little half moon shaped sanding mark in, which can be quite difficult to remove, to be honest. So when you're doing larger areas, we had a picture a minute ago of larger areas being sanded. You're using dry film discs there. What you need to do is clean those regularly, because they start to pill up. The paint that you've sanded off, plus the size material from the disc, plus the abrasive, all starts to clog together, and then you start to put pigtails in. So they need cleaning regularly. Again, really gentle pressure. Same when wet flatting. You don't need to press. You're not trying to groove the stuff out. You're just trying to take the top off it, and if you just file it off gently, you'll find that's so much easier to polish.
Mark,
Buckets aren't the healthiest of things either, are they, Mark? So, you know, Legionnaire's disease, all that type of thing. If you try and break the habit of painters using buckets in the paint area for wet flatting, it's a very good process, and it's a lot healthier to use. And it takes up less room using your bottle squeezy as well.
Yeah, especially as this is pretty much the only process that most places use water for now, really, in the flatting process. Most, not all, but most. So you don't need gallons of water, but you just need clean water. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mark, I've seen a few, and it has to be said that they're probably more experienced painters that are polishing with small either bits of cut off body files, or I think I saw one that had a particular one that was made for the job, like a little file that indicates to me that obviously won't bend and it won't give you the
well, they're very good because they very quickly flatten the piece of dirt. You need to be a little bit skilled using them. Some people even use a single-sided razor blade and are very good with those. Anything that flattens the surface, you're then going to polish back up. What you don't want is a little lump, which is why it's good to use a little block, because if you use your fingers, you can put a groove in. If you use something too soft, you just round the lump off. So, yeah, denibbing tools of any description, it doesn't really matter what it is, just gentle pressure, treat it properly, and do as little damage now as you can. And this, as I say, this all depends on your paint being nice and cured, ready to polish.
We've got a little video now to play, which is quite educational, and you're going to do some talking over this, so I'll let it go.
Yeah, sure. So what we're showing here is just a very tiny denib with a piece of 1500, wet and dry. And you'll notice that I'm not using a P3000. What I'm using is a special applicator, special buff head, and our G360 compound. So that's a block and a piece of 1500. A little denib, nothing huge, didn't use a great deal of pressure, clean water. And now you see how quickly that 1500 comes out when I start polishing with the, this is real time, this video. Small amount of product. And that's that particular pad. As I say, that pad kind of replaces your P3000. But what it does for you is it keeps the repair really small. I haven't made that bigger by having to sand it with 3000. And sometimes what you get when you sand with 3000 is it's more difficult to remove the scratches from around the edge of the 3000. So you'll see that in a second I've finished that.
There was a flexible black back plate on the back there that does help you as well if you've got swage lines and things to avoid any kind of potential.
So that's gone now. And there is a second stage, obviously, because it's a dark coloured car to remove holograms and stuff. But that basically is just showing you that actually 1500 out of what is quite hard paint is just gone in an instant if you haven't done too much damage in the first place. Okay, so there's another couple of little bits of useful stuff, but a lot of people do it already, of course. Clean your pads regularly, clean your buff heads regularly. You can spur them. It's nice to spur them with something like a brush or a plastic scraper or something, not the wall, like I have seen in one particular workshop, which scared me to death, but preferably not the edge of your bench either, because you never know what's on the bench. You might pick up a little bit of metal or grit or something. And you can also wash pads, most of them, and as long as you leave them overnight to dry before you start using them, all good. But if you keep them clean, they'll do less damage.
Yeah, I think we've all seen mop heads with little clumps of polish that have dried out. Yeah. It's not going to do the panel a lot of good.
No, they put some nasty marks in. And then the second little picture is just use small amounts of polish. You don't want the stuff everywhere. And the other thing is, I'm quite a big fan of actually putting compound on where I'm going to polish, not dotting it all over the car because it starts to dry. And then by the time you get to it, it's already drying up, and it won't do as good a job as if you just put a small amount on, use it and carry on. And it won't clog your pads up so quickly if you don't put too much on.
Yeah, it's ironic that if you put too much product on, you end up with less cut. Because
you just skate around on top of
it. It just skates around on the surface and doesn't actually do the job.
Yeah.
And all the excess polish that goes somewhere as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you put too much on, it's flicking all over the place and making a mess and dust and the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
I think this is the point you were making, Pete. You know, the valeter's job is that made that much harder with excess polish. So by the time it gets to the valeter, it's dried as well, and it's complete pain. So save money on product and time.
Yeah, and also the cost of the product, Tom. I mean, any polish these days isn't cheap. It's and coupled, if you do have to use, or if you are using P3000, it's an enormous cost.
Yeah.
Where this particular system's that good, you don't need to with that pan head mop head.
Okay, so another little best practice thing is keep your mop head nice and flat to the panel. The guy on the right there obviously is going to put loads of holograms and unpleasant marks into his bonnet. So just a little thing, but everything you can do just makes polishing easier. If you do stuff like the guy on the right, then you're just making life harder for yourself in the long run. You're going to spend more time trying to get rid of the holograms on that panel. And all we want to do is make it quicker and easier, really. So another important thing is most of us do actually polish jobs probably the same day they come out of the oven. The general advice on that is bake them up properly, make sure they weren't overloaded, get them out, let them cool right down, and then you can flat and polish. Don't start trying to do it while it's still warm. And while we're in this first couple of days, first 3 days, that paint's still a bit thermoplastic. So if you heat it up, it will swell and it will move. And what happens then is sometimes the scratch marks will come back after you've polished something, because really it's all swelled up. You can't see the scratches anymore. You go off, you come back a couple of hours later and it's cooled back down again, and a little hazy patch appears or the scratches reappear. So avoid too much pressure or too much speed. Go with whatever it says on the back of the compound bottle. Pretty much every manufacturer I know of puts a speed range on the back of the compound bottle. Keep the speed reasonable, keep the pressure light, and once the scratches are gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
Don't
So
get the panel too hot.
do you think painters may think more product, more speed,
More pressure?
get through it quicker?
Yeah.
The opposite
Very often.
Yeah.
What you should do is you should let the machine do the work. That's like many things. If you hear a bonnet pop in because it's that hot, that's bad news. That's never going to be a good job.
No. Pete, you've got an example of someone using the wrong tool for polishing, haven't you?
Yeah, it was a 9-inch Wolf grinder that was probably 20 or 30 years old, Tom, and it was he turned it on and it physically moved his hand. There was that much inertia from this. You could cut a breeze block in half with it, you know, but he had an old lamb's wool head on it that was absolutely caked. And I said, have you ever cleaned that lamb's wool head? And the answer was, what, once or twice. he must have had it 20 years. But that's what they do, some of them, you know. You some of the older shops do that, Tom, still, and it scares me. Like Mark's just said, cleaning the mop head off on the corner of the wall that he saw. You do see the odd one. I think most people now are fairly sensible about it, but I mean, it's simple if you do what Mark's saying. And certainly my polishing has improved no end since I've had guidance from Mark, and I thought it was pretty good to start with, but we can all be taught.
Yeah, definitely.
The light pressure is very important, isn't it? Because it's counterintuitive. You know, it doesn't seem right to say, well, I'll back off and I'll get the job done quicker and better. So, you know, it's very easy for people to think, you know, well, I need to press a little bit rather than just use the weight of the machine.
Yeah. just a few key processes that Mark's gone through and going through can make the world of difference.
Okay, so here's another little best practice thing, and I'm going to add a little one onto that. So you see a picture of a guy with a nice clean cloth. Always make sure that your cloths for wiping are clean and free of debris. But also, please, just for me, don't put your bottle of compound on the car. You know, you're polishing the bonnet, you leave the compound on the roof, or you're polishing one half of the bonnet, you put the compound on. That compound bottle has been on the floor, it's been on the bench. The bottom of it is covered in bits and pieces, and it always scratch cars. And I hate to see people's, 5 Series BMWs being used as workbenches. So try not to do that. And abrasives as well. Don't leave them on the car if you can help it. It's all stuff that will just mean you've got more work to do at the end of the day.
So a tidy trolley by the car then, Mark, will pay dividends. And
yeah, absolutely. A trolley with all your gear on would be brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. And one rectification job will pay for that trolley, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
if you scratch something with a piece of grit that's stuck in the bottom, because all the bottles are plastic. So if you put it down on the floor, that bit of grit will stick in that, and then you can do no end of damage. So
Mark,
then
going over to the microfiber cloth, often these days, obviously because overalls are very expensive to clean, I see body shops with a washing machine in the corner.
Yeah.
And they wash their own overalls. What's your stance on washing your microfiber cloths? I mean, I do it at home and seems to be okay, but what?
The ones that we sell, I think we say can be washed half a dozen times at least.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Just keep them clean. The cleaner, the better.
Yeah.
And then finally, check your work. Now, when I say check your work, I mean where you've been with your 1500. Glass cleaner, other manufacturers. And we also make post-polishing cleanup sprays that are specifically designed to remove all the oils and residues so that you can see that you've got rid of your scratches and you haven't just left a film of like very light oil. That's all compounds have a little bit of oil in, but some have more than others and some have other products in them. But you don't want to fill those scratches and think, oh yeah, I've finished, I can go away, because then it goes and stands out in the sun for a couple of days. And that stuff all evaporates, and before you know it, the scratches are back again. And we've all seen that. I'm absolutely certain of that.
What's your stance, Mark, on using? I often see polishers using a panel wipe degreaser.
Perfectly good.
Okay.
Yeah,
good for you.
Perfectly good.
I guess it evaporates a lot quicker than the water or whatever the glass thing that you're using.
It cleans the stuff out. That's the most important thing. So, I mean, here's a little pictogram of basically what we're saying. If you've left some small scratches, like there on the left-hand side, you can see those little triangles that are depicting the scratches. If you filled them with something, and some products do have a lot of filler in, we don't put any filler in our compounds and polishes, specifically because we don't want a problem. But they all have a tiny bit of oil anyway. But if they've got specific fillers in, and some do, certain manufacturers are well known for it, you think you've finished. You think you've got rid of the scratches because you simply can't see them anymore. But if they're still there, when it comes out, gets washed, the rain comes along and the sun comes along, you get the little picture on the right, and all that filler gets washed out and the scratches reappear. Because in truth, scratches can't reappear. They were always there. You just couldn't see them at the time. So that's
the oxidization, Mark, that you can then see it where it dries off and it oxidizes and just leaves the residue there so that you could see it.
The filler evaporates out of the scratches. Literally, that's what it is. It's a filler, and it will evaporate out of those scratches eventually, or get washed out or whatever. But it takes a little bit of time. Some products take longer than others. It's a bit like wax. The reason we wax a car is because it fills all those microscopically small scratches that just stop it being super shiny, but it does wash away after time. You can't stop it.
And people say talk about scratch marks reappearing, but truth is they never went away. They were just masked underneath a layer
just
of fillers.
Yeah.
The trick is to get rid of them.
Well, David, that's a very common thing that I see when I was in and out of body shops before lockdown. Like I said earlier, 2 or 3 times a week you'd see it, and sometimes meet customers and have a chat with them about it, and it just seemed to be one of those things that happens.
Well, that quick cleaning step with the glass cleaner or the solvent or the cleanup spray, post polishing stuff, all of those are designed to remove any fillers so that you can see if you've finished. And if you've finished, you've finished.
Yeah.
Move on.
So over to you, David. But before we do,
Yep.
Andy's commented to say he uses the new system, absolutely loves it.
Oh, great. Oh, well, that's good to
So,
hear.
Andy from Crash
Thank you
Assessor.
for that, Andy. I'll pay you later.
Right, David.
Yeah, well, this is, I mean, looking at, it's been alluded to that obviously paints have got harder and harder over, the last several years, to the point where it's very common for people to sand, to P2000, P3000, or even finer. But those are expensive discs, the foam back ones. So there's a significant expense going into the the post paint part of your process before you start your whatever your your polishing process is. And well, I think Pete alluded to it already, that with the new system that we're advocating these days, I think you've got your next slide will show that you can avoid the expense of the P3000, and it's a relatively simple set of polishing products. The £120 there is that's two boxes of P3000, which there was a big A-class body shop group who trialed this product at the outset, and they told us that the bottle of compound, the G360, was lasting them about 70 jobs, which on their previous system would have required 2 to 2.5 boxes of P3000. So that straight away, that's 120 or even 150 pounds of savings, even before you consider that the number of bottles of product and pads that you need is lower. In fact, those, if we go to the next slide, those 3 products come in a sort of starter kit that we offer, which generally you can find on the market for about 45 quid. So, it's not an expensive system. And the other great thing that they told us was that the bottle actually lasted more than twice as many jobs as their previous system. And I think, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was Mark, sort of said, that's not so surprising, because when you consider that if you're just focusing on the denib area, as Mark was in that video we looked at, you're not having to polish a much bigger area, because if you've gone with P3000, the denib areas become 4 or 5 times bigger, and you've got to polish all of that. So you get an added bonus of using a whole lot less product without it taking you any more time. So return on investment, very good for this system. This is just something Mark was alluding to, the infrared thermometers that do a good job in allowing you to check panel temperatures touchless. And we're offering a free infrared thermometer at the moment with a little deal we've got going. It's the Freckler polishing machine together with that starter kit for the G360 that we talked about, and you get a free infrared thermometer, and the machine comes with a free backplate as well. That's quite a nice little offer. I think you want to take us to the next slide. I think it'll yeah, so basically, obviously any NBRA members can buy this while stocks last. It's in the market at the moment. Those 2 things are, you can buy it for £190 or less. That's at least £50 off list, plus the thermometer that's generally worth about £20 for the infrared thermometer. Your distributor should be able to get that for you, or you can contact Freckler to find your nearest participating distributor. And we did talk about incentives for people participating today. So the first 50 people to have signed in today will receive a little sample bottle of G360 if they want to give it a try. And we said that we'd run a lottery as well of everyone who's joined us live, and that the winner would receive all of that sort of promotional set. So the polishing machine, the G360 compound kit, and the infrared thermometer. So there's a few nice giveaways for people taking part today.
So on that one, David, for people that have registered and joined us today, we've got your email address, so we will email you for your contact details to be able to send that G360 compound out to you. And the lottery will be drawn after this webinar, and we'll announce who the winner is of the bigger prize, the polishing machine, the G360 compound kit, and the infrared thermometer. So there'll be no excuses then.
Yeah.
Brilliant polishing paintwork.
You've got my email address, Tom. Should I get pulled out of the hat?
I don't think we get you in a hat, Pete. Ba-boom.
Yeah, very good. The other thing that we're offering, obviously, is a free polishing health check, if you like. You know, if there are things that raise questions for you, one of our applications technicians could either visit you on site if that's permitted, or you could try and do something via Zoom or WhatsApp on your mobile phone for a walk around and a chat with somebody. And obviously you can contact us by whatever is your preferred method of all the ones that we've got on screen. So, you know, that's something else where we're trying to offer help to overcome any polishing issues that you or your staff are you know, experiencing.
So if I've got a polishing issue and the painters are like, you know, it's the product, you'll come on site, you'll diagnose what the issue is and help out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's Forecla's well known for, is trying to work with people to improve processes. You know, that's in our interest. And as Mark said, there's more behind a polishing issue than you might think. You know, it goes back much further to all the things that Mark was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That is another thing where we're trying to, you know, make sure that we make our expertise, you know, nearly 70 years of making polishes and polishing all kinds of substrates, you know, whether it's paint or, you know, marine and industrial surfaces. So there's now a help and advice section on the forecla.com website with a drop down to the filter at the top, so you can look at whatever kind of surface you're polishing. And if you can't find, you know, a frequently asked question that does talk to the issue you're having, if you scroll to the bottom of that screen, then you can find there's a sort of technical helpline. You can just email in your query, and we'll come back to you either on email or by phone to try and help you overcome that issue. So that's something new that may help people. I just wanted to go off piste. I know it's not polishing techniques and best practice, but while there's people online, I didn't want to miss a chance to just put a shout out for the Forecla bonnet painting competition, which is for students and apprentices. It's a great way to, you know, encourage and recognise the talent of young people coming into our industry. This will be the third year that we've run it. We did have to postpone it last year because of the COVID, but we're back on it this year. It's open for entries. There's the link there. If you do have a look at this website, you can click through from that link, but forecla.com/BPC bonnet painting competition. You can find out all about it. You can download the entry form, and you can download the you know, the design brief. £1,000 to the winner plus a load of products, £500 to the runner-up. Obviously it looks great on your CV. It's a feather in the cap of your employer in terms of what they do for young people. I think it's a great, I know I would say that, but I do honestly think it's a great thing to get behind. So please do, if you employ apprentices, ask them to have a think about that. Maybe click on that link and have a look around, see what you think. If you're going to do it, it's you need to have painted your bonnet and sent us a photo of it by the 30th of July. So you've got plenty of time and lots of time as well to get your entry form registered. You can do that as late as the 2nd of July, but why not do that now? Even if you change your mind and don't paint the bonnet later, at least you've done that first bit where you've got an entry form registered.
Yeah, so. And from personal experience, IRG ran the competition with some apprentices, and then they ran their own. So it does take a bit of prep, and it can't be underestimated how enthused the apprentices get about a competition, especially a prize. And then their mentors equally get excited about it. It's surprising enough. And some of the tricks that come out into the open on how to do some special designs on bonnets is brilliant, I think. And yeah, it's really good for an apprentice to get one, you know, an accolade like this under their belt, and it really spurs them on. So as David said, at the bottom of this slide, and the slide pack will be available on the MBRA website, you've got a link at the bottom, www.forekla.com/BPC. That'll take you straight onto the competition page on the Forekla website. And while you're there, you can have a look at the hints and tips and all the other bits. But I would absolutely encourage you to get your apprentices on board with this. It is brilliant. And then, you know, once you've got a successful apprentice, then you can celebrate that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to stress build on what Tom said there, that a lot of the feedback that we've had from young people that have taken part in the competitions that we've run so far for this, they've said how it built relations with the more experienced painters, because people gave them help and advice, and they discovered more, and they got closer to their colleagues and built respect for them. So it was actually a good morale builder for the team, you know, in your body shop generally, quite apart from whether the young person's bonnet did well in the competition or not. So there's a lot of pluses in this competition.
Yeah, I mean, IRG, through their own competition, they put the winning bonnet up in the reception, which, you know, stimulated loads of conversations from customers to, you know, bringing work providers in, all sorts. So yeah, I'm getting too excited about it. So it's good. Get on board, get your apprentices involved is what I would say. So any questions? So I know it's, you know, I haven't got any questions come up on the actual questions board, David and Mark. So if anyone's got any silly questions, please put them up there and we can try and answer them for you.
Well, I've got one if we're waiting, and I've got one to just to put to Mark about needing you know, new foams, whether you think that's a good idea or not, Mark. I've had people saying, you know, when you get a new foam out of the packet, you should kind of break its back by, you know, kneading it between your fingers or squashing it.
No, I don't. To be fair, ours are not. They're not like they used to be in the old days when you used to get a thick old mop out and they were like a block, like a brick. They're not like that anymore. They're much more flexible even out of the packet, and that goes for ours and other manufacturers. They've all got thinner and more flexible over the years. So no, there's nothing really like that you need to worry about anymore.
No,
I know the horror. It used to be a real horror getting one of those big foam chunky things out until you could get a bit of shape to it. But no, it's not a problem. No.
Okay. Well, still we haven't got any questions. So I think all the participants today will be getting the trial bottle of polish. Like I said, we will be doing the draw after the webinar, and we'll publicize who's won, and we'll email you for your contact details so we can actually get that on and post it out to you, and that'll be coming directly from Forekla. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank you all for participating this afternoon. David, Mark, thanks for coming on this afternoon. It's been brilliant. I think, you know, the simple steps that you've articulated, Mark, will help, I think, in the body shop. And, you know, Pete will be out with his beady eyes as soon as it's safe to do so. So get the chocolate biscuits in and the tea stocked up for him. And no, thank you all very much. Until next time, goodbye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.